Hey, everybody. Welcome to another conversation. You know, everything about this room is magical, but it isn't because the room is magical. It's because of what happens when people come into this room. The room on its own is just an empty room. But then you bring two people in and you bring all of their stories and all of their histories and all the things they believe and all the things that they are into this room. And we always have an option when that happens to do anything we want. But in this room, I have only one desire. That's to make anybody who comes into this room feel loved and accepted, to have them feel listened to and heard, to have them feel acknowledged and validated. And what happens in the process of me having hundreds and hundreds of conversations like this now, what I've noticed is when people don't need to defend what it is they believe, everything they're not falls off. And suddenly who they are actually emerges. And sometimes they see themselves for the first time. They themselves see themselves for the first time. Because we're so used to walking around protected that someone's not going to hurt us or not going to fight us or scared that what if we say this, that person's going to say that. In this room, there's none of that. And why is that important to me? Because in the world we live in, that happens all too rarely. It doesn't never happen. It just doesn't happen enough. So in the midst of a world where everybody's fighting with each other, or people are fighting with each other, everybody's not fighting with each other, everybody isn't doing anything. But in a world where all too often people are fighting with each other, talking over each other, not listening to each other, I want to create a little peephole into another world that's possible. By inviting strangers, people that I didn't even know existed 5 minutes before they came into the room and seeing if we can have a conversation of mutual respect and love. And if we can do it in this room, maybe, just maybe it's possible that we can do it outside of this room too. That hundreds of us or thousands of us can start to have these same conversations. One of the things I realize in doing this is the only time my conversations haven't gone well is when I had an agenda that I brought into the conversation. When I had an agenda, I tried to direct the call in a certain way. That was only twice. I'm not smart enough to learn it from the first time. I had to do it twice, but I learned it after the second time. So I come in pretty agendaless into this room. The only agenda I have also is I have to mention my sponsor. That's this book over my left shoulder. It's the Mosaic. It's actually the book I wrote, and I'm honored that they would sponsor this show. Because it's really where a lot of these ideas came from. The story is just the story. It's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults, where the heck did my parents go? Why are they gone? Like, what happened? Where are they? They tell him they're in a place called heaven. So the boy, because he misses them so much, sets out to find that place called heaven. And he just sets out walking. He doesn't know if it's in a store, in a place, in a person. He doesn't know what it is. And the people he meets along the way sort of surprise him because they're not the holy people or the righteous people. They don't run churches or synagogues or mosques or temples. They're common, ordinary people. They're a trash man and a street worker. They're a artist and a homeless man, a blind woman and a gardener, and a flower girl, and a lot more. And he wonders, why these people? But he says, I don't have anywhere to go, so I'm going to just sit and listen to them tell me their stories. And when he listens to their stories, what he realizes is every single time, the person he now is with is somebody totally different than the person he came up to. Not because they've changed, but because he's allowed them to tell them who he is, who they are. And what he realized is he never sees the world the way it is. He sees the world the way he sees the world. And he wonders, what would the world look like if I could get myself out of the way? If I could slide myself to the left or the right and just see the world as it is. In that moment, he looks to his right and he sees a monk unzipping the sky and welcoming him in to a parallel reality where he meets the wise one, who's the keeper of the Mosaic. And as he walks into the room of the wise one's moving all of these little pieces around this place that we call Earth, and putting the different mosaic pieces in places where connections will happen or things will happen that will enrich their life. If you like that story, my sponsor would be thrilled for you to read the rest of it in the Mosaic by picking it up at Amazon. Either way, I've done for my sponsor what I said I was going to do. I thank them for sponsoring the show. And now let's slide that to the left. And let me welcome into this room Nicole Vick. Nicole Vick, welcome to the conversation. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I have a much longer answer to that question, because what I've discovered over time is we ask that question, how are you? Is it's sort of become like a salutation. It's sort of like, hi, how are you? We don't really treat it as a question that we want an answer to. But when I ask it, I really want an answer. And let me just put some context around this, okay? We're in the midst of a global pandemic, which is isolating us. We're in the midst of a civil rights movement that I thought in the 60s we had already conquered, but we sure hadn't conquered it. It's back in front of us, face to face, eyeball to eyeball. We're in the midst of a Me Too movement where women are saying, hey, I won't stand for you to treat me like that. Black people are saying, I won't stand for you to treat me like that. The world is almost saying through its floods and fires, I won't stand to be treated like this. And it seems like everywhere we turn, anything government, medicine, business, we can't rely on the way things have always been because they're crumbling. And we're seeing a whole new world emerge in front of us, which is often scary to people because we don't like to see change. We're very comfortable being comfortable. So now with that context, Nicole Vick, how are you doing?
Woo! Well, now that you put it that way, you know, it's interesting because all of the things that you're talking about are things that I think about a lot. Even in my day-to-day job, I work on and think about a lot. And so, yes, I am scared. I'm worried. I'm worried for our country. I'm worried. I have a daughter, 23 years old. What is going to happen to her when I leave? One day I won't be here anymore. What will this world be to her? How will she be able to move through this society? Because we've already seen that things are just sort of going backwards almost. And I like that you talked about things are crumbling away and there's something new coming. And I really hope that is true because, again, as you also said, kind of tired of having to constantly defend or fight for the very basic things, my humanity, who I am as a Black woman in this country. It feels terrible, but yet I also have to be grateful and happy that I'm alive. I have my job. I have my daughter. I can pay my mortgage because I know that a lot of people don't have that. So it's a lot. So I do feel I'm good, but at the same time, maybe that other part of me that thinks about all these things all the time is kind of like background noise for me. And I just kind of continue to move through life and focus on the things that are good for me and that I can change. So I don't even know what else to say to that, but it's everything and nothing at the same time.
Yeah. And I love that. And thank you for having the courage to re-answer the question for me and the honesty to do that, because I want to ask the listener to jump into the conversation with us also. How are you doing? And do you have the courage to look at some of those things? And Nicole said something that I just want to highlight for a moment of just how she wants to maintain good and wants to be thankful for the things that she does have. But there's this a lot of noise that's going on over here of the way things are that are just don't seem right. And you must have signed up for extra duty on this, because not only did you come in Black, you came in as a Black woman. And sometimes I think the most forgotten people in the world, I mean, Black men are stand up and talk about what they talk about. And we look at the Black man and white people are scared of the Black man, basically. But Black women sort of have to somehow go along with what their man does sometimes and get sometimes falsely accused of doing something because their man is a certain way. And it's time for Black women to really be noticed as Black women. It's time for Black men to be really noticed as Black men. And being a white guy, we have no idea what that really means.
Right.
And I love when I love and I understand when people say all voices matter. Yeah, they do. But in this case, Black lives matter. And Black,
absolutely,
because they just haven't mattered. Women haven't mattered. And there's a lot of things that don't seem to matter. And it's time for them to matter. Talk to me about that. Because like as a white guy, I feel like a hunky talking about, something I don't know.
I appreciate it though, and I think, what you said reminds me of when you try to go to Mexico or Tijuana and you're a little bit of Spanish.
I'm losing your internet.
Right? Like, thank you for trying. So I appreciate that. But yes, it's rough being a Black woman. And I'm reminded of that every day. And every situation that I step into, every institution that I walk through or try to interact with or try to use. And it's rough. But the crazy thing about it is most of the time, I don't even realize how rough it is. Yeah. I remember once sitting in a meeting around something based on stress or some measure of trauma or something, and someone said, when you have to worry about where you send your children to school, that is a stressor that wears down on your body. And of course there are other things, and I sat there thinking, dang, I have to think about where I send my daughter to school. I have to try to get her into the good schools on the other side of town. I have to figure out how to do these things and put her in the gifted magnet classes with the smart kids. And, didn't realize that other people don't have to do those kinds of things for their kids or worry about how to get them to school safely and back without them being harmed. And so there's a lot of things that happen to Black women, and I've experienced them. I was a teen mom. I had my daughter at 18. Wow. And managed to get my undergrad degree and graduate on time at University of Southern California, a school that is very, great school, but it wasn't built for me. In 1880, were they thinking about this Black chick with a baby walking through these halls? So, again, it's rough for us, but maybe it's some naiveness on my side where I don't even realize how bad it is because I'm just kind of living in it, and you just have no choice. I'm going to put my makeup on, I'm going to put my yellow outfit on and my smile, and just push through whatever the muck of society is and still manage to shine. And I think that is the gift of Black women. When they say Black girl magic, you hear that term? That's what we're talking about, that we're able to push through everything and still smile and look good doing it. And the others, I know I'm rambling, but the other side of it is— No,
you're not rambling. Keep going.
We look good doing it, but our insides are paying the price. That stress, the strain of trying to maintain is actually what wears us down. So we end up with diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, stroked out. We may look really not like, dang, Black don't crack. They say that a lot, but we're cracking on the inside. Yeah. And it bears out in our health. And I think that's the thing that is most worrisome to me. My daughter told me I have to live forever, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. So if you have the answer, let me know.
Yeah. What I really like, this is going to almost sound, and I hope it doesn't sound the way it could sound. I don't want it to sound the way it could sound. But I want people that are listening to really listen to what Nicole said. If you were to stop the podcast right now and to walk away, and this was all you got from it, what Nicole just said right now, I would feel very happy with that. Because I want you to see what people have to work through that we don't have any idea about. And what they need, what we need to give each other is our support and our love and to lift people with us. As we go up, we lift up. I remember being in a business where I would watch and I would help people rise to what they were doing. I was in the publishing business. And we would give people a hand and we would bring them up, and we would watch authors who were with us reach down to help newer authors come in and reach them up and give them a platform to shine in. And so often I would watch when those newer authors that were reached up by older people that were giving them a place to stand now stood above them. They forgot to reach back down and give that person a hand to bring them up too. They just kept walking. And I wonder what it is. You're like, look how intelligent Nicole is. Look how articulate she is. Look how much she feels what's going on and how real her feelings are. And you have to remember, Nicole and I didn't even know each other existed 5 minutes ago. So we're talking straight up, raw, real, honest, without even knowing each other. And so look how trusting and vulnerable she's willing to be with me and us here. And are you going to tell me the color of a person's skin is going to make you think one thing or another after that? I mean, how is that even possible? And for those of you in the audience listening, I hope you're upset with me. Because if you're thinking that at all, I really want you to ask yourself, how is it conceivably possible that I can prejudge a person based on the color of skin? If that isn't the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I normally don't take a stand, but I want to take it right here and right now. Because it's time for this BS to stop. It's been time for 400 years in our country. It's been time for lots of years in other countries. But it's time for it to stop. I'm sorry, I normally don't do that.
Much appreciated. And I think one thing I want to say to you, and it kind of based on what you said, and I know you mentioned my intelligence and my ability to articulate, which is fine. But I think the other side of that is, why wouldn't I be intelligent? Why wouldn't I be articulate? And I think one of the things that I often talk to, I have white friends, I have friends from all over the world. I've managed to create a world for myself, a family for myself of people from all over the place. But I remember one of my friends, she's actually not a friend, she's a business partner of mine in some ways. She came to my home and she had never been to this side of town. I live in Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles. And she was like, oh, I've never been over here. What neighborhood is this? And so I was explaining to her where we were. And I said, do you realize that you have, just as much as we have been victims of the stereotypes, Black people, of stereotypes about race, I said, you have lost. Just as we have, you have. So there's entire neighborhoods of people that are working class. And even if they're not working class, if they're poor, these people have stories. These people have lives. All they want to do, and whatever they do to get it can, be for better or for worse. All they want to do is what's best for them and their families. Yeah. So yeah, driving through Watts, driving through Compton, I never was afraid. I spent most of my time working in those communities. I'm like, these folks are me. When my great grandparents came to Los Angeles, they were living on Central Avenue, moved down to Compton. That's the only place they could go. Yeah. So why be ashamed of those places? But I think because we are so segmented and segregated in this country, in LA, we think LA is liberal, we're segregated. You missed out on us. Just as much as you try to push us away and push us to the South Central and out of Culver City and the West Side, you also lose out on the culture and everything else. And funny thing is, she actually ended up moving and bought a house in South Central. So I thought that was hilarious.
Wow, I love that. I love it. And you remember, as I was lamenting over how I was going to sound as I was saying it, yes. That was my concern, that I would sound that way. Right. But I don't mind sounding that way, because it's not what I think. Because the message I really wanted to say is that it doesn't matter what color we are, what race we are, what religion we practice, what border we live behind, what language we speak, or how much money we have or don't have. Right. What matters is we're human beings, and it's time for us to become one race called the human race. Yep. And not to see anything else but the fact that we are the human race together. And it isn't a race. And it isn't a race, by the way. It's a people. We're not in any rush to get there. We can do it as we need to. All
Right.
Okay, let me try and get back to my composure here. You got me all. We don't even know who you are or what's important to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what's important to you.
So I am a public health advocate, public health professional. I'm an educator. I teach at the college level, and I do a whole bunch of other things on the side. I'm one of those type A people, always busy. I did write a book, and I did some other things, of course.
What's the book called?
The book is called Pushing Through, Finding the Light in Every Lesson.
Okay. Pushing Through, Finding the Light in Every Lesson. Available on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
It
So
is. It
I
is.
want people to go check that out right after this podcast. I want you to go there, and we'll put it in the show notes so you can get a direct link to it.
Perfect. I am a mother, as I mentioned before. I have a 23-year-old daughter. She was born 8 weeks early, 3 pounds, 11 ounces. I was about 18, 19 years old, a freshman at USC, and had her on a Wednesday, went to church on Easter Sunday, back when I was a church-going girl, and went to school on Monday. Wow. And my mom watched my baby, and she said, go to school, and that's what I did.
Wow.
And then I went back again to graduate school at USC. Apparently I like USC. I don't know. I went twice. And still paying for it, by the way, at 42 years old. So it's okay.
Yeah.
But I think other things I'll kind of quickly touch on, things that I really care about: community. I really care about community, and community can be defined in any way, but I love my community where I was born and raised. And I'm always looking at ways to bring communities together and connect people. So I've had pop-up shops in my backyard and featured Black women Black women businesses, just to try to give them some shine, and also to help the residents understand that they can buy these really high quality items from these women and keep the money in the community instead of going to Target. Now, I don't have nothing against Target. Target is great for toilet paper and other things, but you can buy a Christmas gift or a birthday present from someone that has made it by hand that lives down the street.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. I think we've lost some of that sense of community, because it seems to me that growing up, we had that more. Our world was smaller. We shopped smaller. There weren't these big conglomerates that came in to our neighborhoods and took the money into outside of our neighborhoods. Mom and pop shops were how it was when we grew up. And we supported mom and pop shops because they supported our community. Now It seems like everything is made overseas and everything is in a big shop. And, you go into a shopping area in most cities and you forget which city you're in, because all the stores look the same as the city you were in before, and the malls look the same and all of that. So there's something really wholesome about shopping local, about eating local, about finding foods that are made local, all those types of things. So I love that.
Yeah.
What makes you happy?
Food.
Girl, you and I got to go out somewhere together. I like that.
Specifically Oreo cookies. So let me just say I'm a vegan, and I've been vegan probably about 6, 7, 8 years now. And when I realized Oreos are vegan, hey, that's a good thing, because I love my Oreos. I do have a sweet tooth. I've been in denial about that, but I do. Cake. I just had a birthday, so I got a beautiful cake that I'm working my way through, and I'm so excited about it. But I really love food, and I love food from other cultures. Indian food, come on. Thai food, Ethiopian food. So I am really open and love food. Of course, I love my family. I love to dress and shop, and I put on my special new outfit, my little yellow outfit, because I say, "Oh, I'm gonna be on camera. I'm putting my new."
You look great.
Thank you. And yeah, those are the things that make me happy. My car makes me happy, and it is.
So
I like to talk.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
If none of those things were available, would you be unhappy?
Maybe. If you took my Oreos, I think I would be unhappy. I'm like, dang. No, I don't think so. Because again, I would still have my daughter and we would hang out and have fun. She still likes to hang out with me. Can you
I love
believe
that.
it?
I love that. So
And there's still people.
I guess what I'm really
Yes.
asking is that there's a common saying, at least in a lot of places, that happiness is
Hmm.
inside of us. And that when we have our
Yes.
happiness, we look for our happiness outside of us. It fulfills us for a certain amount of time, but then after a certain period of time when we can't have it, we get upset and then we get unfulfilled. Do you believe happiness is inside of you?
I do. There was a book I read several years ago called Conversations with God. I forgot his name.
Neil Donald
Donald
Walsh.
Walsh.
Neil Donald Walsh.
Yes. I think I read all three, right? The three of them. I read the series. And there was a quote, and I actually went so far as to make a painting of this quote, and it's in my bedroom. It says, "If you do not go within, you go without."
Wow, I
So
love
you
that.
got to start. You got to start here. And I think that that's one of the things that's important for me is to think about who I am and what's important to me, and to always lead with that. I think, I talk a lot about leading with the heart. Even in those difficult conversations that you were talking about early in the beginning of in the intro, like, I think a lot of the problem is they're leading from the wrong place. And that's why we can't have those conversations can be difficult, but we can't have productive conversations because everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants to be heard. Nobody's listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that listening, I mean, there, again, these sayings that we're told, we've got two ears and one mouth. It's twice as important to listen than it is to speak. But why do you think we haven't gotten that? Or do you think we haven't gotten it? I'm basing it on you said nobody's listening. So I'm
We
assuming.
haven't. We haven't figured that out yet. I think we're human. We like the ego is so important. Like what I have to say is important. So listen to me, but I want to keep talking. I don't want to hear you. I just want to talk. Um, And I don't know. I think that was probably something they taught us in kindergarten to learn to listen. And then, as time passed, we forgot about that.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
our needs became more important than other people's needs. And I think for me, I see that with this pandemic. Like, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to do these things. I don't care about you. And I'm like, but that's not how this works. That's not how this works. And people are like, I don't care.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
why don't you care? So
yeah.
somewhere we lost that. And to your point, I don't remember having that when I was younger. I don't remember seeing it as starkly as I see it now. Like, what happened? What between the time I was like in kindergarten till like now, I feel like we are so separate and so about ourselves to the point where we are willing to put other people's lives in danger. Like, just put the mask on. Nope, nope, I don't want to do it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Yeah. It's such an interesting question because something like an invisible virus has taught us so much about who we are as people, right?
Yes.
I mean, just being isolated. We're so used to running outside and having our life felt outside. For people to be in quarantine has caused a lot of people a lot of questions of who is this person? I can't run away from myself anymore. And what do I do with myself now that I'm here by myself and I can't see myself, And it's also caused a lot of pain. I have a developmentally delayed daughter who lives in a group home. And so I haven't been able to
Mm-hmm.
see her in person for over 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow is her birthday. The day after tomorrow is her birthday. And we just said, we're going to come and pick her up and we're going to bring her back to our house. We're quarantined. You're quarantined. The only thing we're in danger of is a car, and the car is not she's going to be in quarantine in the car. So like, there's no reason why we're not going to do this. And we are going to do it. And we talk the social worker and the people into, we're going to take extra precautions, and because we can't have her go back to the house sick because the people's immune systems are compromised that she lives with. So, but it just separated us, and she's the most important part of my life, so you start to think like
Yeah.
what is really going on that an invisible virus can do what it does to us. And I often say to people, one of the things that's made me inspired to do is create an invisible virus myself. but the invisible virus would be an invisible virus of love. I would like to spread the invisible virus of love and let that start to infiltrate into people and let them start to become contagious and let their love be contagious and spread to other people. If an invisible virus of fear can do that much for what's going on here, then what can an invisible virus of love do? Your thoughts?
Amazing. Hey, I'm down for it. I think that would change the world. And I just wish that people would be open to it. But for some reason, we're so stuck in fear and so afraid. But yeah, that would be great. Let's do it.
What do you think we're so scared of? Because we are afraid. What do you think we're so scared of?
I think we are afraid of giving up our power. However little power you have, you're afraid of having to give that up in order for other people to be elevated. So I think you talked about what Black Lives Matter, and yes, all lives matter. Of course they do, but we know that some people's lives don't. And in order for those lives to be equal to everybody else's lives, somebody's going to have to give up a little bit of something. I don't know what that is, but you kind of got to bring yourself down. And I don't think people want to lose, and they don't even really understand what they potentially could be losing, but the fear of losing whatever it is enough to say, nope, this is mine. Too bad. If you're poor, it's your fault. Can't help you. And that's where that fear comes from.
So can I challenge that a little bit? I don't know how to
fix that.
Can I challenge that idea a little bit? Because one of the things I love to do when I'm a big guy, so when I walk into a room, sometimes I knock tables over, and I sometimes do it consciously. I don't do it as unconsciously as it seems, because sometimes there's a lot of stuff sitting on people's tables. And sometimes a lot of that stuff no longer belongs on those tables. And you can tell it doesn't belong, but we're just too scared to get rid of it. One of the thoughts that I think is in people's heads is around the fear that we have, which I think you really expressed well. But what if that wasn't true? What if in order to lift you up, I didn't have to deflate myself? What if there's plenty of room where we are? Like people have always said to me, the high road has so much room on it because nobody walks it. So like, let's bring you up to the high road. We don't have to go to the low road because you're on the high road. There's plenty of room up here for everybody. There's plenty of room for everybody to be seen and heard and listened to and valued and prosper and work together to create something beautiful. We don't have to go down in order to do that. So if we didn't have to go down or become less than because we're bringing somebody up, what are we scared of now?
I think people don't believe that. I think people don't believe that we all can kind of be elevated up together. I still think people still think I'm going to lose something in order for other people to also win. I still think that people don't get that. That no, there's room for everybody. There's enough food for everybody. There's enough clothes for everybody, enough shoes. There's enough resources. There's enough of everything for everyone. I don't think people believe that. And so they're like, nope, this is mine. And like a little kid, like mine. Yeah. And they don't want to let go, even though you're right. You're absolutely right that there is enough for everyone, but nobody believes it, except maybe you.
Well, now maybe you too. Maybe I just doubled my population.
2 people.
But that's a double. We just doubled our population. I'm particularly interested in a place where it doesn't cost anything. Because what I really want to start is a revolution of listening. Because I think that when we listen to each other, we have the possibility to innovate and grow and learn things about each other that we could never do if we don't listen to each other.
Right.
And that doesn't cost anything. It doesn't even take more time. It actually becomes the most productive thing a business could do is listen to the people that work there. Yep. It will bring more income in because you'll get fresher ideas and newer ideas. You'll see new ways of doing things. In a family, the best thing we could do is listen to each other in the family because together we can help each other to understand more. The kids can teach the parents, and the parents can teach the children. And we can all sort of be together in a horizontal reality of just coming together and loving each other, because it's really in that, like one of the images, one of the reasons why I love this, the idea of the mosaic, not only the story, but the image of the mosaic, is nobody's teaching anybody anything in a mosaic. The pieces aren't saying you have to learn from me. What they do is they just come together, all different pieces, broken and whole, different colors, different sizes, different shapes, different textures. They come together, and just by coming together, they become more beautiful. All of them become more beautiful than they were on their own. Even if they were beautiful on their own, coming together, they're more beautiful. And that's the image that I think this world needs right now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I just, how are we going to get there is always, the question for me, how do we move, create this movement? Because it can't just be me and you and maybe a few other people. How do we create this movement that makes that happen? And I know in some ways it is a one by one relationship thing that does kind of help that grow. You kind of have to have that relationship thing happen and start talking to people. But like, how do we create that movement, where there's like this, I kind of just imagine like a tumbleweed, like it's rolling over and it's getting bigger and bigger,
Well, we just doubled our population in this conversation. So imagine what can I, but really, so if you look back now at history, one of the things that I love is listening to people who have looked at the way civilizations have changed. And there's a woman by the name of Margaret Mead, who is an anthropologist, who said that it's always been a small group of people who came together with a clear purpose in mind. It didn't take large groups of people. It took a small group of people to come together. And through that small group of coming together, civilizations have changed.
Yeah.
I mean, think about, like, I'm a Jewish guy, but let's use the example of Jesus Christ. How many did he have? 12 people?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't this big, massive group of people. It became a big, massive group of people, right?
Yeah.
Think of what Buddha did. Buddha didn't have any following. His first sermon was the way he walked from the Bodhi tree where he sat under into the town square. People said, I want to walk like him, and started to follow him.
Wow.
And that became the movement called Buddhism. So it doesn't take, we sort of sabotage ourselves by thinking it has to be a lot, when all it has to be is you and me and a handful of other people.
True.
And if we look, I put a post up that you responded to, that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people responded to.
Yeah.
I had no idea that many people would respond. And I invited people to come and be a part of a show called 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. Well, in the first week, over 250 people responded.
Wow.
So I couldn't call it 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers anymore, right? And there is this hunger within us to just be with somebody who will listen to us and hear us. So would you be willing to start listening to people?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I actually realized I'm really bad at it.
Tell me why. Why are you bad at it?
I'll give you an example. My boyfriend, he'll tell me stuff and I'll be like, you didn't tell me that. He's like, yes, I did. And I'm like, oh, see, that means I'm not paying attention, and I need to pay attention to him better. Because I think sometimes I am more interested in what I want to talk to him about and share with him. Oh, this is what happened today. Look what, da, 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 da. And then I don't stop. Well, how was your day? So I am being more aware of that. And I don't do it on purpose. I'm not intentionally this horrible person, but I just think I just get really excited about, what's going on in my world that I don't often hear and remember what's going on in his world. And so I'm being more aware. He'll say, remember I told you? And I'll say, I actually do remember that. I do remember you said that. So I'm bad at it, but I'm getting better. I think the first step is being aware that that's an
Yeah.
issue,
Yeah.
and then working towards being better. So yeah, it's something I need to work on
Do you feel
for
listen?
sure.
Do you feel listened to? Do you feel when you speak, people hear what you're saying?
Yes, I actually do because for some reason I realized that I'm a connector. People will ask me for things or advice or information, and I'm always able to connect them. So people listen to me because I often get that feedback. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for that resource. I did this thing. Um, so I
But
do
that's
think
listening to you as a business person.
true.
Do you feel people listen to you for what you think and feel, and that intimately, that is not helping them business wise?
Uh,
But do you feel people listening to you as a human being?
I know my boyfriend does for sure. I know my daughter does. My mom and dad, probably not so much. They are, and they've always been some interesting people to me. I love them, of course, but our relationship isn't probably what a lot of people consider a typical relationship with my, parental child relationship. They have very different views than I do. So oftentimes we have to kind of not talk about certain things because then it's going to go off onto this whole other tangent, and it's like, oh, okay, we're not going to do that. So I don't think my parents probably hear me very well. Maybe my dad more so than my mom. My mom is a little um, I don't even really know how to explain her or
Yeah.
describe her, but
Yeah.
dad is probably more open to hearing than mom.
Yeah.
So it was more of a, I'm just going to call you to check on you. Hi, how are you? What's going on? Oh, how's the weather? And then it's
Right.
like, okay, bye.
Right. 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 Can I share with you a very intimate story? I tell it a lot, but I would like to share it
Sure,
with you.
sure.
I've had the opportunity to be with lots of people in my life. Some of the richest people in the world, some of the most inspired people in the world, some of the people that stand on platforms and talk to hundreds of millions of people. And I've also had the opportunity to sit on street corners with some of the poorest people in the world. The person I've probably learned the most from in my life is my daughter, and she's about to turn 31 in 2 days. And my daughter is developmentally delayed. She can't have a conversation like this because when she speaks, people don't understand her. So she counts on me to understand her. And most of the time, because I love her so much and I'm so connected to her and I feel her so much, I get what she's trying to say. But sometimes I don't. And when I don't understand her, what she'll do is she'll raise her voice and say it louder, thinking I just haven't heard her because she sees I'm getting old and she thinks I'm probably going deaf or whatever. but and she's probably right to some degree, but it's normally not the volume that causes me not to understand her. It's the clarity in which she speaks or doesn't speak.
Mm-hmm.
And when she speaks it louder and I don't understand her, then what she'll do is she'll tantrum. And I wish it happened like chick, 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 like I'm saying to you right here. But she has a different time frame that runs in her mind because she's developmentally delayed.
Right.
So she might have said it, and then 5 hours later she screams it. And then maybe a day or so later she'll have her tantrum. And I couldn't see that they were all part of the same event because my time frame is different.
Mm-hmm.
And so her tantrum can come in the middle of a restaurant where we're sitting having a meal. It can come in a store. It can come while we're driving. It could come while I'm at a business meeting. It could come when we have friends over or we're over at friends. And I just couldn't figure it out. And when her tantrum wouldn't work, then she would come running at me and try and attack me. She would try and rip my shirt or destroy something, bite me.
Mm-hmm.
And it went on for about 15 years. She's almost 31 now. And so I thought I was like a pretty sensitive, caring dad, but it would hurt me to no end that I couldn't understand what was going on. And finally, in the midst of her rage, as she was running towards me one time, I just sat there and I said, Elisa, we can't do this anymore like this. You know that. You know that I love you. You know that I want to understand you more than anything in the whole world. I mean, you're the most important part of my life, the person I have in my life. I want to hear you. I just can't understand your words. Will you please talk to me in a way that doesn't use words?
Mm.
And from her rage, she just stopped dead in her tracks. Big smile came onto her face. And in perfect English, she said, "I am Daddy."
Mm.
And I said, oh, hold on. I said, "What the heck are you talking about? You are Daddy. Like, how are you doing that? Like, how come I don't know you're doing that? How are you talking to me without words?" And she went like this. And what I understood from that was that because her words, I couldn't understand her words, she was sending her thoughts to me telepathically into my mind. And so I looked at her, I said, "You little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts into my head?" And she did what you did just now. But it was with the freedom of now no longer carrying that burden of trying to express to me what she was trying to say and the way she was. And we got caught in a contagious laugh that went on for probably 20 minutes. And it felt like it went on for 10 years. I mean, we just couldn't stop laughing with each other. From that moment on, she's never raised her voice, she's never tantrumed, and she's never attacked. Because now she
Wow.
knows how I can hear her.
Yeah.
So I got greedy. I started to wonder, do other people act just like my daughter?
Hmm.
And I started to look at families I work with and businesses that I work with. I started to look at government offices that I work with. And I started to apply the same methodology. Like, what do people do when they don't get heard? Doggone it, if I didn't find they do exactly what my daughter Elisa does. When they speak and they don't get heard, they yell. When they yell and they don't get heard, they create havoc somewhere. They try and disrupt something or try and destroy something, or mess with something. And when that doesn't work, they try and destroy something. They can shoot up a town square. They could blow up a building. They can end a marriage. They can ruin a reputation. They can try and bring down a business. They can try and fight in court. They can try and do all sorts of things. And if I sort of sat there in amazement that my almost 31-year-old daughter now, but then much younger daughter, showed me how to defuse all of that by just finding a way to listen.
Yeah.
Do you believe it could be that simple? Do you
It
believe?
can. I believe it. I believe it 100% that it can be that simple. I just, and I always go back to, like, how do we train people? Listen.
Yeah, yeah,
But it is that simple. It is. It absolutely is. And I think one of the things, to your credit, though, is the skill to kind of be like, wait, what's happening? Let me assess the situation, because something is not right, or, something is going on. There's a miscommunication. There's a wall somewhere. I mean, being sensitive enough to realize, hold on, let's sit here and try to figure out what's happening. And I think that also is so valuable, because oftentimes we don't stop to even try to figure out what the issue is. We're just kind of like, oh, well, what's all this yelling about?
yeah, yeah,
Whatever. What's happening? Why are they doing that?
yeah.
Let's get to the core of the issue and try to figure it out. Yeah.
It amazes me because it seems like it's so simple that if a politician would listen on the left, would listen to a politician on the right, and not interrupt them and not overtalk them and not talk them down and not fight them, but just really listen to what the person's trying to say, there might be no more fighting. We might actually learn how to get along, right?
Yep.
And I'm a person who believes that everything in the world is possible. And the only reason it's not possible for me is I just don't see a way yet to make it possible.
Right.
But as long as I sit in the silo of people who see exactly like I see, I'm never going to see a way to see it possible, because they see just exactly what I see, and that's all that I talk to. But when I get out of my silo and I start to listen to people of unlike mind, suddenly what happens is I start to hear the same thing I'm looking at can be seen 100 different ways. And maybe in one of those different ways of seeing it, suddenly I start to see an answer to something. You're frozen? I can still hear you. I just don't see you moving. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's breaking.
Oh, I don't know what's happening. Okay.
I lost you. You're back.
Okay.
Now,
So
now.
Oh, I can hear you. There, I see you now. I see you moving.
Okay.
I hear you.
Okay. You know
Okay.
how this Wi-Fi is out here,
Yeah.
you know.
But we're all getting inundated with so many people using it, right?
Okay.
Um, so the interesting thing is that as long as I stay siloed and I talk to the people
I
that
think
see the
that's
world,
what it is.
what's that?
Uh-oh. It's breaking up again. Okay. I think I have you. Okay.
Maybe it's just telling me I'm talking too much, so I should just shut up.
Oh
Um,
no. Now you froze. No.
Sometimes if we listen to what's happening, maybe it's telling us that our conversation's over. Because that's what's happening here with that, right? Huh.
Maybe so.
You're
Because
gonna
it
set,
keeps going.
yeah. You're gonna send me all of your information. But if someone wants to get in touch with you and learn more about you, what would be the one best way to do that?
Um, the one best way? Oh my gosh. Probably my Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Nicole D. Vick.
Okay. And that will be
That's
here
the
as
best way
long
to find me.
that will be here as well as the other ones. But if you want to make sure you got a surefire way to get through, go to our Instagram account and contact her there. Nicole, in the final minutes that we have, I want to give you 2 minutes to share with the world something you would really like them to hear. What would you like to say to the world?
I would like to say to the world that we will benefit so much if we spend the time to learn from each other, to talk to each other. I often think about the Humans of New York series and getting to read people's stories and their lives, and it's always so interesting. And I'm like, how do we get back that curiosity and that openness of just talking to people? And I think this whole idea of this podcast is so amazing. Talking to strangers. I often try to do that myself when I'm somewhere. Oh, hi, how are you? And I think we just need to get back to learning from each other, realizing that everyone has value and a story to share that is valuable, and that all of us matter, yes, and we need to create a society where indeed all of us have the same opportunity to live our best life. And I think if we can continue to understand that your reality may be different from mine, but there's something to learn from each other, I think we will be fine. But we got to get there, and it's going to take, like we just talked about, one-on-one, couple of people that can really make a difference. And I am a firm believer that all of us can make a difference. We don't have to wait for permission. We don't have to wait to be a millionaire. We can do it where we stand right now in this moment. So take that immediate power, use what you have here and here, and create change.
I love that.
And with that,
I love that. I'm going to ask one more thing that I've never asked before, but I think it's going to become a staple of the show. For those of people who are listening who would actually like to help you, how can they help you? What's one thing they could do to help you grow your mission, your work?
well, I know we talked about my book earlier, and I think my book is a wonderful example of understanding public health concepts and social justice concepts. And it's a good tool to share with other people, especially young people, college age or high schoolers, so they can understand, again, a different perspective on things. And I would say purchasing that book, Kindle version or the paperback, and sharing that book with someone that you think would benefit from a story like mine, teen mom that was able to push through, and at the same time reach back and help others. I think that would be such an amazing gift for me and very helpful to my cause.
Love it. And I'm going to push it a little further. I'm going to say, if there's anybody out there listening that does movies and writes scripts, if there's anybody out there that wants to fund projects and wants to help fund something in the work that Nicole is doing, if there's anybody out there that knows of teens that need some help and want to give them somebody to talk to, I want to invite you to Nicole doesn't even know I'm doing this. I want to invite you to have them contact her and see if she might be able to help mentor them through this process, either for a charge or however you guys work that out. But I want to create more from this community of people where we don't just sit by and listen to other people's stories, but that strangers, listening to two strangers speaking, start to get involved in the lives of strangers and start to become friends with those strangers and start to help those strangers come together and build something. Because as Nicole was saying, how in the world is this ever going to grow? I don't believe we believe that a small group of people will ever do it. So let's make that small group of people actually more actionable. And so I really want to ask you, she'll have all her contact information here in the show notes. Reach out to her and say, how can I help you? What can I do? I have extra money. Can I give it to you? I have people that want to create a film. Can I create something for you? What is it that you need? And what is it that you can offer? Not only to Nicole, but to every single conversation that we've had. And reach out to them and say, how do I help you? What can I do for you? Because I believe when we help each other, people help us too. It can't be that we do it because that's why we do it, that if I help you, then I know you'll help me. You can't, if you do it that way, it's not going to work. But how about if you just did it out of the beauty of your heart, of just reaching out to help somebody else and knowing that somewhere in this universe, the universe will respond by giving you back exactly what you need and more. What a beautiful way the show could start to manifest a new world for people, not only where they see people listening to each other, but where they see people helping each other, where they see people building each other, where they see people lifting each other up. Because I want to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's more than enough room on the high road, that there's more than enough room up here for all of us to coexist, and that we don't need to hold other people down so that we can have more. There's plenty for them, there's plenty for you, there's plenty for me, there's plenty for Nicole, there's plenty for all of us. And by working together, maybe we can do that. I want to thank you, Nicole, for coming and sharing of yourself so openly and honestly. I want to thank the people that listen to the show all the time for just coming and being here with us. I want to thank you for going through some technical difficulties that we've had where maybe our voices haven't been heard. Even, isn't it funny, we're talking about letting your voice be heard and technical things come up to interrupt that. But we are heard. Even with technical stuff, we are heard. And I want you to know your voice is important, that you are heard. I especially want you to know, get out and vote this time. Whoever you want to vote for, get out and vote. Your vote matters. It's important.
Yes.
And don't let anybody talk you into saying your vote doesn't matter. Your vote does matter. Get out and vote. Do what you got to do. Speak your voice. Let it be heard. Nicole, is there one last thing you want to say before we head out?
This was the most amazing experience I've ever had. Thank you for reaching out the way you did, and I found you, and I don't think there is ever, life is not an accident. Things that don't happen by accident. So really, really grateful for the opportunity. So thank you. And this was amazing because, again, as you said, I was able to step outside of myself and not, my job, and just talk about things that were important to me. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
It's an honor to get to know you, and thank you for showing up so that I could get to know you.
Thank you.
For those of you who are listening, until the next stranger comes into town and comes into this room, be kind to each other. Be kind to yourself. Love one another and love yourself. And don't be scared to reach out and listen to somebody else. As the story of Corey, the homeless man that I met, said, you have no idea how much power you have in just listening to another human being. Don't try and change them or fix them. But in listening to somebody, you could just change their life and save their life. And so I want to invite you to go out and talk to somebody you don't know, whether it's virtually or in person. Find someone you don't know and walk up to them and just say, how are you? You don't need to fix them, convert them, change them, help them. All you need to do is just hold the space and listen to them. Nicole came in as a stranger into this room. She's leaving now as my friend. And I want to do work with her. I want to find a way that we can do something together. So when you live in a strange world, the people in the world are strangers. But when the people in the world become friends, we start to live in a friendly world. Live in a friendly world. Create a friendlier world. Be kind to each other. And whatever you do for somebody else, make sure you do it for yourself too, because you need that love too. Your voice matters. Speaking out. Vote. Stay safe. Until the next stranger, God bless. Ciao.